Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and boy do I have a show for you today. We're seeing things now that I never thought we would see. We are seeing truths now that I never thought that we were going to see. And it really, really looks like people who are getting nervous because we have uncovered so much of the truth that was trying to be hidden. Wait till you see what I'm about to show you. Strap in. Hey, Seiko Carmona sent me this first. From Flare, very happy to announce that Algorand will be in the first cohort of tokens to be integrated on Flare. All right, now before I show you the just crazy SEC news, okay? I mean, I need to use words that are. It's shocking, it's massive, it's awesome. Whatever the word is that really captures your attention, that's what the stuff is I'm going to show you. But first I wanted to show you this. You'll remember our buddy Andrew Keys. He's the guy that used to be with Consensus. He is the guy, if you remember when I showed you the Charles Gasparino video from May 10th of 2018, Charles Gasparino was reporting on the Brooklyn project, and he said two important things. He said that he was told that the goal was for it to be SEC sanctioned, and he said that the Brooklyn project tried to correct him, and he said no. Andrew told me specifically that the goal was for it to be SEC sanctioned, and they were working with the SEC and the CFTC, and he said Andrew, he didn't say a last name, but he said Andrew, and then he copied in when he was in his Twitter thing, Andrew Keys from Consensus. So, I mean, obviously that's who he was referring to. That's never been disputed, by the way, by Andrew Keys. Andrew Keys, previously of Consensus, he's also the same guy that tweeted this when the SEC dropped the lawsuit on Ripple. He said XRP, he's gloating, XRP is a security, okay? Same guy. Now, the reason you need to understand that backdrop is to watch this video, because when you watch this video, basically what you're about to hear is what I heard Brad Garlinghouse talking about Ripple was trying to do for the last 3 or 4 years. I saw Brad Garlinghouse on stage speaking to various people about almost exactly what Andrew Keys is talking about here, which makes him a competitor.
So the first central bank that did any of this, I actually was lucky enough to lead, which was the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And what they did with Consensus and JP Morgan
and Consensus.
Essentially real-time gross settlement of the Singaporean dollar. So there were 11 institutional banks, HSBC, Goldman, Standard Chartered, Citi.
Oh, so Goldman and JP Morgan were both involved. Isn't Goldman where Gary Gensler was for 18 years? And Joseph Lubin was at Goldman too. Remember that. And Mike Novogratz.
The central bank literally sat in the middle, and they would net, if Citibank sent $1,000 to Goldman, it would literally go through this central intermediary. And then basically what we did was we created a node where there was a central bank regulatory node on this environment. They were essentially taken out of the middle, but they were able to watch and monitor, but they didn't have to serve that function. And what we did was we digitized the omnibus accounts. And so if they had $100 in their omnibus account, they would get 100 digital dollars on a permission version of Ethereum, and they would move these digital tokens, and the central bank would get the example I gave of the triple entry accounting. They would own that third party, the third ledger. And basically what it did was it reduced the trade settlement latency from T+2, 2 days clearing and settlement, to T+0. So you had literally real-time gross settlement. And what that does in thawing interbank payments it just creates a much faster velocity.
Okay, so there's Andrew Keys. And then this afternoon, out of nowhere, Charles Gasparino tweets this, and you listen close, folks, because there are things in this that have never been told to my knowledge, that have never been said. These guys could have easily told us this a long time ago, and I don't think they did because they didn't have the pressure that they've been put under over the last few months by none other than social media, because nobody else would cover it. Okay? Scoop, one of three. In March of 2018, Gary Gensler, then at MIT, met with then SEC Chairman Jay Clayton to discuss crypto regulation, stating Bitcoin should not be considered a security, but the SEC should crack down on other aspects of the business. Sources confirmed to Fox Business. Okay? So we've known that Gary Gensler was on Jay Clayton's calendar, but we didn't know that he was specifically meeting with Jay Clayton to talk to him about Bitcoin and this other part about other aspects of the business. Gary Gensler has never come out and said he advised Jay. To my knowledge, he's never come out and said that. Here's what else, but keep following me. The meeting occurred at Jay Clayton's office just 3 months before former SEC corporate finance chief Bill Hinman gave a speech at the Yahoo Finance conference, providing his view that Ethereum and Bitcoin are not securities, but that others may be. Clayton provided input. Now remember, folks, to my knowledge, this whole time, all the way up until Hinman was in the court, when Hinman was in court with Ripple, he said that this was his personal opinion. I don't remember ever hearing Jay Clayton say that he was in any kind of what's the words they use here? That says Clayton provided input into the Hinman speech. I've confirmed. I don't remember ever hearing that Jay Clayton provided anything. The only reason I can see that they would be coming out and saying this now is because there are timelines out there that we've put together, and these guys see where this is all going. That we figured this thing out, or at least most of it. Now, in 2020, the Clayton SEC filed charges against Ripple alleging its use of XRP to build out its platform violated securities laws. Clayton, Hinman, Gensler had no comment. So they don't want to comment at all on the Ripple lawsuit. More at 1:30, okay? So, and I've got the video for that, which I'll show you in a minute. But first, I want to show you what I did here. Because now that we know that Gary Gensler specifically, the first question I had was, so you're telling me, this is March 2018, well, I'm going to make the points here. If he met, and I went back to Jay Clayton's calendar and I found the exact date. Gary Gensler met with Jay Clayton on March 22nd, 2018. Here he is right here. Now, why does that matter? Okay? Reason that matters is because that was just 4 days. 4 days before the Venture Capital Working Group, which Jay Clayton ordered back in January. He asked Chris Dixon from Andreessen Horowitz to put together this Venture Capital Working Group and then present him a memo, which this is the memo. This is the memo that more or less became the Hinman speech. It arrives at the SEC the way we understand it. It's dated March 26th of 2018. Who knows? Maybe it got there a few days earlier, but this is what it was dated. We don't know. So what we're supposed to believe, and I said this to Charles here. Okay, Charles, so here's the Clayton meeting with Gensler on 3/22/2018. The Safe Harbor memo 4 days later from the Venture Capital Working Group, which Clayton requested, became the Hinman speech. Are we to believe that Gensler didn't discuss this that was in the works since January? Didn't discuss the Ethereum, what the working group was working on, just because even if they got the memo 4 days later, you're telling me Jay Clayton was having no conversation about this? Folks, come on. Then there's this, which I was reminded of once I saw that Gasparino said that Gensler met with Jay Clayton. Now we know he met with Jay Clayton in 2018. Now remember, to my knowledge, all we knew is this guy's an MIT professor. Nobody was talking. He never came out and said, from what I remember, that he's been advising Jay Clayton on what to do about cryptocurrency. Now, maybe he did and I missed it. But I do remember this. I remember it like it was yesterday because, as I recall, the security issue, the idea of XRP or Ethereum being a security was a non-issue. Nobody was talking about it. Now, it may have been an issue, but it didn't come on my radar when I was doing YouTube videos until this article, because I remember talking about it and saying, why is this retired CFTC guy coming out of nowhere to do an article in the New York Times where he just throws out there, I think Bitcoin's not a security, but Ethereum and XRP probably are. Okay? I always thought that was funny business. Now I'm pretty sure of it. Well, so what did I do so that we can really get a good picture of what's going on here? I took Gary Gensler and put him on my timeline. The Bill Hinman Ethereum Free Pass timeline. Now let's look. It gets really interesting when you look at when things happened. So you'll remember January 25th of 2018 is when Jay Clayton met at Andreessen Horowitz and told them to get the memo together. Told Chris Dixon, go get all these people together, the Perkins Coin, all these firms, and which he did. Then March 22nd, 2018 is when Gary Gensler meets with Jay Clayton. 4 days later, the Venture Capital Working Group Safe Harbor memo arrives at the SEC, and 2 days later, the Venture Capital Working Group presents all of that stuff to the people at the SEC. We know that all of this was directed at Hinman and Valerie Chapinick. We saw the memos, okay? If you look at Jay Clayton's calendar for this March 28th date, it shows him in, quote, it was like meetings with staff. It just showed a couple of meetings with staff. Well, I have a hunch that those meetings with staff, yeah, technically he was meeting with staff, but I think he was also probably in the same room with those people meeting that are presenting the Safe Harbor memo information. We know for a fact, because I showed you the video, that one of the guys from Union Square Ventures was one of the major presenters because Nancy Wotas said so. I'll bet you dollars to donuts that Jay Clayton was sitting there meeting with his staff, but also watching the presentation of that. That's my theory. In fact, I'd lay $1,000 on the table right now that says he was sitting there in that presentation. Now, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit. There's no way to prove that, and he probably wasn't. But it would if somebody said, "Hey, guess who else was there? Gary Gensler." That wouldn't surprise me a bit either. Okay, but that's just me talking out loud. Okay, but then look at this. Do you remember how the Safe Harbor, Nancy Wotas said that the Safe Harbor memo was supposed to be secret and it leaked, okay? Let me write those words down because that'll be a good to put on the thumbnail of this video. The memo was secret, but it leaked, okay? Now, here's why that's interesting. Who did it leak to? Well, it apparently leaked to Nathaniel Popper, who on April 19th, 2018, wrote the article on the Venture Capital Working Group in the New York Times. Well, why is that interesting now? Well, the reason it's interesting is because that article that I just told you about, where Gary Gensler showed up in the New York Times, you'll never guess who wrote it. And it was 3 days after the leaked article about the Venture Capital Working Group. 3 days later, Gary Gensler is in the New York Times saying that he thinks XRP and Ethereum are securities. Okay? All right, let's keep going. Now, let me throw something else out there. And look, I don't know that this is anything, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. What you're looking at here, this is an article, and it was written literally 3 days before the Bill Hinman speech. Ripple Labs case will address key cryptocurrency question. He says, it's time to start talking about the elephant in the room, okay? But I want you to see these. I want you to just think about all of this right here, folks. The discussion around this issue has become increasingly urgent in the last few weeks. On April 23rd, Gary Gensler, the former chairman of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, caused a stir when he made the case in a speech at the MIT that both Ether and Ripple Labs XRP coin could be classified as securities. Around the same time, it was first reported that representatives of the venture capital firms Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, which back Ether, had met with the SEC officials in March to plead their case that Ether should not be treated as a security. Then, on May 1st, the Wall Street Journal reported that the SEC and CFTC were investigating whether Ether and other widely traded cryptocurrencies would be regulated as securities. In contrast to the frenzied doomsday predictions that followed, Gensler speculated that it would take several years for the SEC to implement a rule that would answer this burning question. Now it seems that an answer may be coming sooner than expected, not from the SEC, but from a federal judge in California. The issue has been squarely teed up in a private securities lawsuit filed by Ryan Coffey, who sued Ripple Labs and its CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, on May 3rd of 2018, claiming that XRP is a security and that Ripple's sale of XRP coins constituted unregistered securities offering. I'm going to have to put this date right here on my little timeline. And then I wanted to show you this part, the test. The timing of Coffey's lawsuit filed just over a week after Gensler's speech at MIT and only 2 days after reports surfaced that the SEC and CFTC were considering the regulatory fate of coins like Ether and XRP could not have been more on cue. Folks, man, I don't know what to tell you here, but there's freaking smoke rising up out of all this stuff everywhere. All right? And then Charles Gasparino comes and tweets this a little later. Breaking: former SEC Chairman Jay Clayton gave this is legal speak big time, gave some reactions to Bill Hinman before he gave his now famous speech at 2018 at the Yahoo conference that stated his belief as SEC corporate finance chief: Bitcoin and Ethereum aren't securities, fall outside SEC scope. I mean, look, folks, you know what's very telling here is that these guys are speaking in short little quotes, and it's like they're writing out these little canned quotes that they think they can get away with saying, but the last thing they're going to do is go and be interviewed where somebody can actually ask them questions. And this is what I asked Charles Gasparino here. Why doesn't he just come on your show and explain it? Let you ask some questions on the spot. These statements are more canned than Chef Boyardee beef ravioli. I really did like beef ravioli. So now here, this is Gasparino today on Neil Cavuto.
Maybe some mixed messages. What's going on?
And by the way, running in conflict from Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler wants to crack down on crypto.
No, by the way, as you watch this, there's something I feel like I've learned from watching Charles Gasparino. This guy, there's two things to know about him based on what I've observed. The first is that he's very careful, and I don't blame him for that. He's giving these guys the benefit of the doubt at every turn, and I think that's good. I think he's got to do that, because then when he finally finds fire instead of smoke, he's got a lot of credibility to go along with it. He wasn't biased in any way, and I understand that. Well, the second thing I've noticed about this guy is he can smell BS, and he plays it down, but he can smell it. In this particular thing, he throws out J.P. Morgan right in the middle of this story, and I don't think it was by accident.
But the one crypto he likes is the one that Diamond says is worthless, and that's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little background here. This is exclusive stuff. We're going to probably write it up for foxbusiness.com. But in 2018, Gensler actually met with then SEC Chair Jay Clayton about crypto regulation in 2018.
Wow.
He argued to Clayton, from what we understand, that Bitcoin should not come under SEC scrutiny, that it's definitely a currency or a commodity. It should not be regulated, and he basically argued others should be. So that's the green light for Bitcoin. You'll probably trace it from a regulatory standpoint back to 2018 when Gensler, then an MIT professor, and by the way, the MIT had a special sort of group that studied that. It was a kind of a think tank at MIT that was very heavily into the Bitcoin blockchain. Yeah. So he was advocating for Bitcoin back then. And it's funny, after what happened after that, 2018, a few months later, there's a guy who gives a speech, the guy who ran corporate finance, Bill Hinman at the SEC, where he argues that Bitcoin is not a security, does not need to be regulated by the SEC, along with Ethereum, another big crypto, but others might need regulation. So that's where you trace the modern regulation, I think, of Bitcoin, of blockchain, and the SEC's involvement with these meetings between Gensler, Clayton, and as you know, Clayton actually sued Ripple when he was SEC chair because of their crypto. So basically what you have is the SEC out there deeming two of these things not securities, no regulation, but others might be. And that's where we are today. So now Gensler is trying to get his arm around it. On top of all that, you have Jamie Dimon throwing a curveball saying that this thing is worthless.
Do you think he's saying that as strategy, leave it alone, it's not worth your time?
It could be. Now, you know, J.P. Morgan kind of talks out of both sides of its mouth, right? It's looking to develop its own cryptocurrency, its own...
Let's get more specific there. It's looking to develop its own cryptocurrency, and it has been working with Consensus since before Ethereum, or working with, I guess, Ethereum, since before Ethereum even launched, JP Morgan. We know that, and I'll show you the video to remind you in a minute. Now, here's the second part.
And at the same time, it says Bitcoin is worthless. I don't think the Bitcoin is worthless. It may not be worth $60,000 a Bitcoin, but
people who talk to you are saying it could be a pop up to 100,000.
Well, just technically.
Yeah.
So I think Jamie needs to better understand. Right. We need to better understand what he says. But a big story here, okay, with him weighing in on this, is the regulation of crypto, whether the SEC is picking winners and losers in crypto, giving a free pass to Bitcoin, Ethereum, but not Ripple and XRP. And I'll tell you, our viewers who are holding these things are going nuts because they don't know which security next is going to be deemed a security, which crypto is going to be, and then they decline in value because you can't trade it, or you need to disclose stuff. It's a very complicated situation, which I know you're into complicated situations.
No, all your stories, they're complicated, but you unravel them brilliantly.
Thank you.
It's okay, sure. All right, Charlie Gasparino.
It's that fifth grade education.
We would talk about crypto. All right.
Let me go back to the timeline a minute because he brought J.P. Morgan up. So we need to go back to the timeline and make sure that you see that we see all the consensus meetings, because we know for a fact that Joseph Lubin from Consensus was working in, and I'm going to show you the videos. Joseph Lubin and Consensus were literally working with J.P. Morgan for the last few years, okay? And J.P. Morgan created Quorum, and then Consensus bought Quorum from them, okay? He's also in charge of the JPM coin. He said it himself. So let's go forward and show you what else we have. First, I'll show you this. I've shown it to you, but you need to see it against all this backdrop.
So RippleNet is trying to take on Swift. What's been the traction like? Who's come on board?
Well, it's interesting as you step back and look at this. If you and I decided we were going to send $10,000 to California today, the fastest way for us to do it would be to drive to the airport and fly it there. That's a crazy thing to think about when you're in the age of the internet and we're used to information on demand. When we think about the customers that have come on board, it's because we're solving that real problem. We're changing the nature of a payment taking days to settle to California to seconds. So we now have well over 100 customers, ranging from some of the biggest banks in the world to payment providers to the Western Unions and MoneyGrams, Linlin Pay out of China.
How many banks?
It's over 100. I actually don't know the exact number now. Last time we announced it publicly, we said over 100. We'll probably announce the next one when we get to over 200. We're signing up more than a bank a week now.
What are they using Quorum for?
So the publicly
announced applications are their interbank information network, which has north of 400 financial institutions around the world. And it's essentially a messaging layer, similar to what Swift does. JP Morgan, I believe, has around 4,000 financial institutions in their correspondent banking network. So one could imagine that all of those organizations and perhaps more will eventually end up on IIN. So Consensus is supporting that network. And Consensus is also supporting JPM Coin, which is a stable coin solution. So
remember, that's the World Economic Forum document right there. I think I just had that. Now watch this.
JP Morgan started paying attention to Ethereum blockchain technology even before public mainnet was released. So they started experimenting and building out some things when we were still building proofs of concept. They had a handful of different teams that focused on blockchain technology, and we've interacted with them roughly from the start. We started to interact with them in a really concerted way around the time of the advent of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. We were two of the major drivers of that initiative and have been two of the major drivers of activity inside the EEA since launch, really.
Chain, that usually takes 30 days to settle. If you're able to settle that practically in a matter of days or hours, that puts that money back into the system more quickly.
But I guess the question that I'd ask is, if you're an owner of Bitcoin this morning, or Ripple, or name fancy, Zcash, any of these kinds of things, do you say to yourself, this is a great validation of this space and therefore there's more value here? Or do you say to yourself, if JPM has its own coin, and maybe Bank of America one day will have its own coin, and Credit Suisse will have its own coin, maybe there's no need for these other coins, and if those and therefore the value would be diminished?
So there's that. Then XRP Bart, $10 plus, sent me this. Hester Pierce comes out and look, here's her. This is what she put on the SEC site. Lawless in Austin, and her whole write-up, this is based on some of the video I've put out, but what she worded here, make no mistake, this caught my eye. This wording is intentional. If government wants to bring law to crypto, it should behave lawfully. If that does not raise some eyebrows, I don't know what is. I mean, she is literally, I think somebody said it here, down here. It says Hester Pierce, XRP Crypto says Hester Pierce is calling out Gary Gensler. We love to see it. I mean, this is unbelievable how she worded this, because she's no dummy. She knows how that would be looked at. And look, folks, one thing, I don't go on my channel and say that people broke the law, and I don't say stuff like that. I don't talk about any of that kind of stuff. I tell you there's a lot of smoke, and I say a lot of things about how this stinks and all of that. My job, I'm not here to accuse people of anything. I'm here to present the video of their own words and the facts, and to tell you when something just doesn't feel right to me, and that's about it. And if these guys, if nothing was done wrong in all of this, then fine. Go on Gasparino and let him ask you some questions. If you didn't do anything, if everything's above board here and there's no problems here, then go on the show. I mean, all these guys should go on the show. There's all kinds of guys that have done nothing but go do interviews for the last 3 and 4 and 5 years, and all of a sudden they don't want to do interviews. That seems to add more smoke to this thing. I wanted to remind everybody, Link2, who's one of my sponsors, linqto.com. And I'm a customer. These guys added some Ripple private equity onto the platform, and they added some Uphold today. So, and yesterday I think they had added some link to. So you go check it out. It's only for accredited investors. You'll have to apply and see if you're accredited, and these guys can let you know about that process. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that there is an awful lot of smoke here, and we're dealing with secrets and leaked documents and all kinds of stuff.